Welcome to the Primal Endurance Podcast, where we shake up the status quo of ineffective conventional endurance training. Enjoy an assortment of expert guests, where we cut to the chase and give you the unfiltered scoop on what it takes to go long, have fun, and stay healthy. And now, here's your host, Brad Kearns.
Perhaps I was blind to the facts, stabbed in the back. I couldn't trust my own homies, just a bunch of dirty rats. Will I succeed? Paranoid from the weed, and hocus pocus, try to focus, but I can't see. And in my mind, I'm a blind man doing time. Oops, wrong show. It's the Primal Endurance Podcast, question and answer. One moment. Tell me, what's the use of trying? I've been trapped since birth. Okay, we got tons of questions today. Some of them very lengthy and eloquent. So I'm going to try to skim through these quickly because I want, or through the long questions, because I want everyone to get a background of what the participant is doing in life, and not just jump right to the question, not to the juicy stuff. But a very nice message written by Blake, and talking about this contradiction or this challenge balancing the Primal Blueprint Fitness message, which is move frequently at a slow pace, lift heavy things a couple times a week, and sprint once in a while, with the Primal Endurance approach that is so focused on periodization, taking a strict and distinct period of time to build an aerobic base where you're de-emphasizing intense workouts and staying under that 180 minus your age heart rate zone. And Blake likes to go out there and do these ambitious mountain bike rides where his heart rate is well over the maximum aerobic limit, but it's a fun time. He does about 40 of them a year, and so definitely wants to be trained and enjoy those. Also have this total body fitness because he doesn't have distinct competitive goals in the endurance scene, but how to mix this all in without the obvious complaint or the obvious dead-end route of getting into an overtraining pattern, which Blake describes. So he says, what I have not found to be addressed with as much specificity is a sort of middle ground that I believe myself and a significant number of other people occupy. In other words, you have somewhat of endurance goals. You want to do some cool stuff, maybe do that marathon once a year, or that triathlon, whatever in your hometown, and also wanting to have that total fitness or that broader perspective of fitness as opposed to a really strict endurance athlete who wants to do everything right and compete and succeed and follow the periodization plan outlined in the book. So, how do we do this? I want to do the sprinting and strength workouts every week. I want to do this mountain bike ride on the weekend where my heart rate is up 155, 160, well above aerobic maximum. Priorities are generally being healthy, feeling good in my regular life, as well as on these rides. So, questions. How can I get away with mostly primal training and still be healthy and feel good during these sort of mountain bike rides? I understand my conundrum is generally what has produced the whole high-intensity interval training method of training for endurance events, and I don't know if that works. I don't know if Primal Endurance full-on protocol is going to work either. I think the deal here is balancing those disparate goals and avoiding overtraining. So there's no accurate answer. It depends what's most important to you. But if you really love those mountain bike rides on the weekend and they're exceeding maximum aerobic heart rate, the rest of the time, absolutely with your aerobic training, should be under that maximum aerobic heart rate so that you don't get into overtraining pattern. So once in a while, and we haven't talked about this enough in the book, we just try to use the scare tactics to keep you under that 180 minus age heart rate. But once in a while, it's fine to go out there and do a 3-hour ride or a 1.5-hour run where you're exceeding your maximum aerobic heart rate and you're just running at whatever speed you can hold for that duration of time, putting in a nice vigorous effort, whether it's a race or just an aggressive ride with your buddies. But once in a while is the key phrase here. You don't want to be doing this as a pattern every single weekend. Even once a week is probably too much to sustain without getting into that overtraining spiral. So once in a while you can go for it with a long duration, elevated heart rate, or the black hole heart rate zone that we talk about with so much disdain and warning about. But once in a while, that's fine, and it will get you fitter. The goal is to always balance those stressful events with plenty of rest and recovery. So if you're doing the strict Primal Blueprint Fitness approach, where you got the strength training, sprinting, and the move frequently at a slow pace, it's very easy to balance because you're not doing these black hole workouts, and you're not doing extreme endurance training where you're putting in so many hours per week that it's compromising your ability to recover from or be rested for a 15-minute strength training session. So I would say for Blake and for other people that have these disparate goals, take those periods of time during the year where you want to emphasize the aerobic stuff, the mountain biking. Let's say that's part of the season that's spring and summer, and the other times you're not so big on the aerobic efforts. Take those periods of time to really stay strictly at or below maximum aerobic heart rate with almost all of your workouts except for the ambitious competitive efforts, and also de-emphasize the strength training and the sprinting during the time that you're putting in more volume aerobically. It kind of makes simple, intuitive sense. And then at other times of the year, again, addressing Blake particularly because he doesn't have those strict competitive endurance goals or those high priority competitive endurance goals, you can go right back into the Primal Blueprint Fitness mode where you're doing strength training, you're doing sprinting, and you're doing almost all of your aerobic workouts at or below maximum aerobic heart rate. And then finally, for everyone, there's periods of time during the year where you naturally should back off and de-emphasize everything. So you're not sticking to the protocol of 2 strength workouts a week, 1 sprint workout every 7 to 10 days, and this many hours of aerobic exercise and cardio. There should be times where you're minimally active, you're resting from your high activity periods of the year, and you're feeling fine and comfortable with that, where your main workout might be walking, or if you're a downhill skier and you get into that scene, it's not terribly aerobic workout and it's enjoyable, and you can have skiing as your main form of activity along with walking around the block in your neighborhood for, let's say, the month of the year that's happening, and that's giving you a rest and a break from this consistent routine of being in the gym and sprinting. So when we say these principles, these are general principles to be adhered to on average or in principle rather than strict and distinct. So if someone writes me and saying, hey, I've done 52 weeks a year, 2 strength workouts a week, that's 104 workouts in a year, that's probably too many. We want to have some ebbs and flows there where you're not always pushing yourself and adhering to your best case scenario with your fitness goals. Same with the aerobic stuff. There's periods of time where it's better to back off. Check out Fitter Food, Matt Whitmore on Instagram, super fit guy who's one of our authors along with his wife Karis, writing Paleo Primer 2, and he's always putting his workouts and things up there. A super fit, extremely fit guy, and he's writing just recently about how he used to work out every single day. He was a lifelong athlete, very at the extreme high performance level, and now he works out 4 days a week and gets better results. What he's thrown into the picture, besides his ambitious strength training routines, which he puts on video up on Instagram with kettlebells and body weight stuff, which is really fun. He says walking his dog, Hamish, around the streets of London, the parks of London, has been the missing element for him to have more fitness breakthroughs than when he was training 7 days a week. So get a little bit more inconsistent with your training patterns, whatever your goals are. If you're a serious athlete or you're a blending guy like Blake, that's going to be the ticket to success. And of course, how do you do this? There's no formula. It's intuitive. So right now here in Auburn, California, it's 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Maybe people aren't feeling like as much exercise as when the temperature is moderate. So don't do as much exercise. Take it easier. Do much shorter workouts. I've had 2 great workouts this week in the 100-degree weather, but they only lasted 10 minutes. I didn't need to warm up much, otherwise it wouldn't have lasted 15. But when I got out of my car, I was warmed up for the sprint workout and the high jump session. So hot weather, go out there, do your thing, and then get right back into cool so you don't get into these overtraining, dehydration patterns and all that stuff. How's that, Blake? I know it was a tough question and a rambling answer. So if you guys ask me like specific yes or no questions, we'll try to throw those in as a balance too. Next is Edward. I'm on board with Primal Endurance and the MAF approach. My question is about swimming. I learned how to swim as an adult, made lots of progress. I'm on a master's team. Our sets are like 50s, 100s, 150s, and 200s. Would the MAF approach apply to the pool as well? How should triathletes approach aerobic improvement in the swim? Do you have to be that tri-nerd wearing the heart rate monitor in the pool? Excellent question, Edward. Love that. Here's the thing about swimming. It's so much less stressful on the body than running or cycling that heart rate and exceeding your maximum aerobic heart rate does not come into play nearly as much as it does on running. Even a fit runner can depart from their driveway and get into even a reasonable pace and hear that watch start beeping when you get up to 180 minus your age. Because running is such a difficult sport, weight bearing, gravity, all those kind of things, heat generation from working up a sweat, where in the pool, there's no weight bearing. You're not elevating your body temperature because you're cooled by the water, unless you have a really warm pool. I know sometimes we've gotten into that. But generally, swimming is so easy on the metabolic system, the hormonal system, all those things, that you can swim, quote unquote, hard and doing the interval sessions like Edward describes and still not be exceeding your maximum aerobic heart rate. So I wouldn't worry about wearing the heart rate monitor in the pool. If you're dying and hanging on the wall and doing an extremely difficult set, you can assume that yes, you are getting into the anaerobic heart rates there. But for the most part, you can swim pretty vigorously where you're really breathing and working and feeling your muscles work and not be worried about plunging into this black hole overtraining pattern that so easily happens out on the road running and even biking, especially when you have hills or resistance or being in a pack and getting aggressive out there. Now, here's the thing about swimming, especially for triathletes. By far, your greatest improvements, your greatest breakthroughs in performance will come from improving your technique. Let's think of swimming in three realms. First, we have our cardiovascular endurance required to swim a mile or a mile 0.2 or 2.4, whatever it is. So you need some cardiovascular endurance. You need some muscular endurance to be able to continue the stroke pattern and push water without getting tired and having your arms fall off, as you might feel when you try to swim too fast. And then finally, you need the technique in the water so that you're moving as much still water as possible with every stroke and for the entire duration of your stroke, from the entry point to the complete exit with a straight arm, coming out and thrusting that water behind you. If you look at a triathlon swim or a group of triathletes swimming in the pool, by and large, their technique is atrocious on average. I get to say that because I'm a former runner turned triathlete and I had to work long and hard on my technique. Small, tiny incremental improvements in technique can result in huge performance breakthroughs. If your stroke gets 6 inches longer and you're doing, 1428, 60 strokes per 100 yards times 4,400 yards in an Ironman swim, so times 44, if you get 6 more inches out of every stroke, that's minutes and minutes of improvement on a 2.4 mile swim time or even a 1.2 mile swim time. Getting more length in your stroke, meaning you're entering, you're gliding better, and you're exiting further down your body rather than pulling out early. So working on technique. How do you improve technique? Of course, with a good coach, videos, DVDs, whatever you can get your hands on to learn the basics. The Primal Endurance online course will get into some of those basics, so you'll get some really easy, quick, and memorable for your whole life, lifelong memorable tips and techniques from me, the guy who studied swim stroke incredibly intensely because I was trying to keep up with those top swimmers throughout my career as a triathlete. But when you get your swim technique better, this is best done at a slow pace in the water. That's when your brain, your nervous system, learns with most efficiency, not when you're trying to swim as fast as you can to make the interval in the master's workout. Because what happens when you get under stress, your stroke breaks down. When you get under fatigue and stress in the water, your stroke breaks down and you start ingraining these bad habit patterns because you're trying too hard and you're fighting against the water rather than going back, slowing down, and ingraining the good technique so that it will stay and preserve even when you're trying to swim faster and faster. So lengthening your stroke, just doing calm, gentle laps back and forth. There's a great story about Mike Pigg in Primal Endurance and also in my career where I slowed down the pace of my swimming to just take it easy and not really work myself to death on these hard intervals. And I got faster and faster and faster in the competitive setting. Why? Because, as I said, triathletes, technique, atrocious. Muscular endurance, pretty good because they put in a lot of yard swimming. So they're in there working, getting the muscular endurance. Even if the stroke's not that good, you're still getting some good endurance there. And finally, cardiovascular endurance, the third component, is exceptional because of all the other cross training. So if you envision the average swimming triathlete who doesn't have a swim background, A+ in cardiovascular endurance, B- or whatever in muscular endurance, and finally an F in technique. So slow down your swimming. You will improve dramatically. Get the instruction of a one-on-one good coach in your area is the best way to improve. And also check out Primal Endurance online course, and I'll help you as much as I can remotely with some really simple instructional videos and thought processes you can take and think about every single stroke you do in the water. Thanks, Edward, to bring swimming into the picture. Jenny is next. When training for a half marathon or marathon, is it typical to do training sessions that include goal race pace efforts? It appears Primal Endurance approach focuses more on building a base with the MAF approach and then including some short sprints. Do you believe that no race pace or tempo efforts should be included when training for run races? If so, how can an athlete's body become accustomed to race pace and perform accordingly on race day? Is there ever a time for more traditional run-based training once a base has been established? Wow, that's one of the best questions ever on the podcast. That is the absolute dilemma and the $64,000 question that endurance athletes have in the back of their mind when they're trying to slow way, way, way down according to aerobic maximum heart rate, and then wonder, how in the heck am I going to be competitive at my marathon or my half marathon when I'm going a minute, 2 minutes per mile slower, minding that aerobic maximum heart rate? Here's the wonderful thing about endurance training and building your aerobic system, is that when you build your aerobic system without interruption from overly stressful training patterns, like practicing race pace over and over and over, when you build your aerobic system from the ground up with comfortably paced training, you teach your body to perform better at all levels of intensity. So in other words, when you have that strong engine built at low heart rates, you can turn on the gas pedal, you can flip the gas pedal and go a minute per mile faster during your race pace effort because you are strong, fit, a fat-burning, efficient athlete. So whatever your launching point is, let's say your aerobic heart rate gets to 8 minute per mile on your test or 10 minute per mile on your test, and you try to go run 8 minute miles, it's so easy and efficient to run at 180 minus your age at the 10 minute mile that the 8 minute mile is going to feel fine even for up to 13 miles or even 26 miles. There's some research coming out from Maffetone saying that your marathon race pace, even your marathon race pace, is faster than your maximum aerobic heart rate pace by about 15 seconds per mile. So if you can get your MAF test down to a 10-minute mile, you can run a marathon at a 9:45 pace and feel fine and comfortable throughout the whole thing. So the answer is you definitely want to emphasize the slower pace training, and your fitness goals are there. What happens on race day is that's when you bring out the magic. That's when you bring out something special and you dig deep and you deliver a peak performance that you don't ordinarily do every single day or even very often in training. Make sense? You have to buy into it. You have to believe and trust that this aerobic base building is going to work because you feel so comfortable and so efficient at the aerobic heart rates. Of course, there's way more in the tank and you could turn it on anytime you want. Now, you want to do that once in a while? Go ahead, knock yourself out. So do a tempo run or a race pace run or practice and see how it feels. And I'll bet you what you'll find is if you have that discipline to build the aerobic pace, build the aerobic base up with carefully regulated heart rate limits in your everyday training, you're going to feel fantastic on those days when you do perform a tempo run or a race pace effort of whatever distance. Whether you're a 5K runner, you can go open it up and go all out for 3 miles where you're going well, much faster than your aerobic maximum heart rate. Or you can do a 13-mile training run where you're going whatever, 5-10% above your maximum aerobic heart rate. You're definitely planning in a lot of recovery time after because it's a stressful event to the body to exceed maximum aerobic heart rate for a short duration 5K training run, 10K, or a longer duration half marathon or effort up to a couple hours. So you can throw those workouts in. We talk about the black hole and the dangers of exceeding maximum aerobic heart rate in the book. But again, this is the pattern of exceeding that heart rate routinely with your routine workouts rather than once in a while, which is just fine. But respect the stress effect on the body of all those intense workouts or those stressful workouts that take you into anaerobic metabolism. That's why Jenny mentioned the sprint workouts, where if you're only doing a 15, 20-second sprint, you're only doing 4 or 5 of them, that's a great workout to work that higher end, help your bone density, your cognitive function, your hormonal function, and also your ability to reduce excess body fat with those very brief but super high intensity sprint workouts. Those should also be easy to recover from because you're done with the whole thing in 15 minutes. Yeah, you'll probably be sore the next day or the next couple days, but of course you can go out for an aerobic jog and get right back into your aerobic base building and still enjoy the benefits of sprinting once in a while. How's that? Good luck with whatever you were doing your half and full marathon runs. Okay. So Kevin Meyer says, love the book. I've devoured it twice. That's the way to do it, man. Read everything twice. Ordered all of Maffetone's books, right on, plug up there. I've been doing strictly MAF runs since I got the book many months ago. I am still quite slow. While I notice my MAF times improving, I'm in the 12 minute per mile plus zone for my MAF performance test. I'm running Brooklyn Half Marathon. When I ran the race last year using the old school chronic cardio, I did a 2:22. That's a 10:50 per mile pace. I'd love to beat this time, but the MAF threshold, I'm going too slow. Should I give up on a time goal and let the chips fall where they may, or should I move into anaerobic training phase now as I have 10 weeks to go before the race? So my answer, as you can probably guess, it goes back to Jenny's thing too. If you get stronger and stronger at aerobic heart rates, you're going to destroy your previous time that was delivered under a chronic cardio training pattern. Same with doing too many of those tempo runs. Pretty soon, as Jenny and everyone else finds out when they're doing an overly aggressive training program, pretty soon those runs are going to turn out crappy because you're tired. You're not recovered from your previous undisciplined training session of whatever, even 20, 30 minutes where you were 10% above your maximum aerobic heart rate. So be patient. Build that base as you progress to race day. Even if you're running 12-minute miles during your MAF tests, you will be able to pull one out of your hat and do better than 10:50 per mile, even if you don't have a ton of those workouts under your belt. And the question answering directly, should I jump into anaerobic training phase now because the half marathon is so far away? Look, when we're talking about these aerobic events, and by the way, you're not a world-class athlete if you're running 10:50 miles. You're going very, very slowly for 13 miles, which is a great fitness accomplishment. But we're not talking about the guys in the front who are dropping 4:28s in the middle of the race and breaking the pack open and running, into those very impressive anaerobic performance level. So the vast majority of the pack in the long-distance endurance events is almost entirely a function of the efficiency of your aerobic system. Has nothing to do with how well you can sprint or run quarters or do anything like that at the track. We have old-time guys from old high school quarter milers that can go down to the track and throw down an impressive track workout, really impressive track workout, and then jump into a half marathon, and they'll be running 10 minutes and 50 seconds per mile, just like the joggers. Or you'll see some of these impressive physical specimens that can turn in high intensity, long duration anaerobic efforts, whether it's a pack ride on the bike where you're jumping around and going 27 miles an hour for the 2-hour ride along the river or whatever it is in every city and every town in America. And what do you see? You see 20 extra pounds of body fat on these pretty fit specimens, but aerobically deficient. Anaerobically fit, so they can throw down in the pack ride or throw down on the weekly track workout, but aerobically deficient. They are not efficient at burning fat. Therefore, they have excess fat on their body and they tire out and slow down in a race setting because they haven't taken the time to build the aerobic base. I know it's counterintuitive. You feel like if I'm going fast and running around the track fast, that's going to correlate well with my half marathon time. And not to be misunderstood, of course, the high intensity workouts have a profound training effect and they're better than sitting on the couch. But the true path to greatness and to reaching your potential in the aerobic sports is to build that base first and then sprinkle in anaerobic workouts few and far between to put the icing on the cake. Keith says, I bought Primal Endurance and have been training with a heart rate monitor. I basically have to shuffle 2/3 of the time and walk 1/3 of the time to stay at that 180 minus age. Is that normal? If I stick to things, I'll typically improve. Who answered this in writing? Mark Sisson himself, the busiest guy on the planet, loves getting these questions. We all read them, and Mark jumped in here, so I'm just going to read Mark's answer. How about that? This is an interesting question. It shows that he's not that good at burning fats because he's only able to walk and shuffle, and he can probably run faster at high heart rates, but that his efficiency is severely compromised. So he's burning mostly sugar when he does elevate these heart rates. The only way to get efficient is to run as fast as you can at 180 minus your age. So you run whatever pace that is, and it's going to be slow. You're going to be shuffling and walking. That's fine. That's the heart rate at which we know you are putting the most oxygen through and burning the highest percentage of fat without getting into threshold or glycolytic realms, which raise lactate. That's the accumulation of lactate in the blood, accumulation of the stress hormones in the blood. This is what happens when you exceed maximum aerobic heart rate. Bottom line, spend more time training in that aerobic zone, and hopefully over time your efficiency improves to where you can go faster and faster and faster at that aerobic heart rate. Thank you, Mark Sisson, for that answer. And here comes Chris Newbound, longtime journalist in the endurance sports scene. This guy is a very knowledgeable guy. He's written many great articles for the leading magazines, been around forever. And now let's hear from this guy. My hunch is that overtraining or training at too high a heart rate, junk miles, whatever you call it, also stimulates appetite more than training at these lower heart rates. And so not only are people not getting much bang for their fitness buck because the workouts are overly stressful, that's my parentheses, but they're actually maybe overeating due to such training. Glucose being stimulated and cortisol levels being elevated, etc. It's a very vague hunch of mine, but the message of trying to find your sweet spot with training intensity is much lower than most people would think, and then a low-carb approach with your nutrition might make this whole excess body fat problem, this BMI inflation, sort of melt away, or at least crack the code for a lot of people, including myself, who hovers around 25 BMI. I don't know where that stands on the health concern scene, but it's higher than Chris wants. So his big goals at the age of 57 are simply health and wellness, fewer injuries, weight loss, and vitality, not faster race times or anything to do with performance. So here's the thing. Thanks, Chris, for teeing me up. That's beautiful stuff. This is the essence of the Primal Endurance approach, or one of the greatest benefits is that you become better at burning fat 24/7 around the clock because of your fat burning workouts. Your workouts have a profound effect on your daily or your normal metabolic rate because they are calling your body into action at much higher than resting levels. So when you go up to, it's called metabolic equivalency of task. It's a measurement for what your metabolic rate is in comparison to being at rest, doing certain activities. So gardening gives you a score of 6 MET, metabolic equivalent of task. Slow jogging is an 11, vigorous bike riding is 15, and an all-out sprint can go up to 30 metabolic equivalent of task, 30 times more metabolic function than at rest. So when you do a single sprint workout that only lasts for 10 or 15 minutes, it has a profound effect on your ability to burn calories, burn excess body fat, build lean muscle for hours and hours and hours afterwards. Maffetone references some science here where it's 48 to 72 hours affecting your metabolic rate afterwards. So when you do a fat burning workout at 180 minus age or below, when you do another one the next day, and you do another walk the next day at lunchtime around the courtyard, and when you do a hike on the weekend and you take care not to overexert yourself and feel tired and hungry at the end, when you're into this fat burning mode and you're teaching your body to burn fat during these prolonged or even short aerobic sessions, you get really, really good at burning fat around the clock. It's not exactly the direct path to losing a bunch of excess weight because there's not enough stimulation to the metabolism when you're doing walking around the neighborhood or even hiking. So the key to losing excess body fat is to first regulate your ingestion of carbohydrate, regulate your carbohydrate intake, regulate your insulin production, and that will kick you into fat burning mode more than relying on your next meal for energy, which is what happens when you go on the insulin sugar roller coaster. But on the training realm, you can totally screw that up, as Chris mentions, by exceeding your maximum aerobic heart rate for prolonged cardiovascular workouts. As you drift above that 180 minus age, you start to burn an ever greater percentage of glucose compared to fat that you burn at lower intensities. You start to have less oxygen available. Fat needs oxygen to burn, glucose doesn't, and you start to get into those high heart rates where you're doing a boot camp class or a spinning workout where your heart rate's busting out at 175 for the entire class. You're burning a ton of glucose and not much fat. So you get off that bike, you're sweaty, you feel great, the stress hormones are flowing, the endorphins are flowing. It feels like you did something good for your body, but what you're setting yourself up for is carbohydrate dependency for the hours and hours and hours after that workout. And if you're in this sugar burning workout pattern, you will most definitely be thrust into a sugar eating pattern as well. This is where a lot of people trying to make that switch over to primal paleo eating style suffer, struggle, and fail as a consequence of their workouts, unbeknownst to them. So if you're doing spinning class 3 days a week and you're waking up super early in the morning and getting there in the dark and jumping on the bike and pumping those stress hormones through your bloodstream and burning that sugar, we will see how things go over the next 14 hours. And I'll bet you at hour number 14, it's going to be Ben & Jerry's pint out of the freezer, just because of how you've depleted your body with an overly stressful sugar burning workout. So Chris Newbound, he's right on, spot on with his hunch. His hunch has been proven by science and proven by the results of people that have adhered to aerobic exercise patterns and primal eating patterns. It's the best way to stick with a transition to a lower carbohydrate intake diet, and it's the best way to improve with your fitness and also set yourself up for success when you're doing those sprint workouts. So remember how I mentioned that 30 metabolic equivalency of tasks for the brief, intense workout, whether it's strength training or sprinting. The workouts aren't long enough to throw you into carbohydrate dependency. Okay, you're not burning that many calories in 20 or 30 minutes, so you're not ruining the rest of your day with a totally depleting workout where your glycogen's been burnt out and all you can think about is sugar and sweets. So you're just putting these brief high-intensity workouts that you can easily recover from. It doesn't stimulate tremendous appetite increase. It does a little bit. I find after my sprint workouts, I'm going for a few extra calories for the rest of that day. But it has such a profound effect. It's such an intense shock to your metabolic system that it will accelerate fat burning, because your baseline mode is fat burning because you put hours and hours of fat burning workouts in throughout the week, and you regulate insulin production in your diet. So that's where the sprint workouts can cut you up like nothing else, because they are so high intensity, but they're executed in a crucible of fat burning eating and fat burning exercise. I know it's a long answer for Chris, but this is something that's a big deal for everybody. And let's get to a couple more, and then we'll wrap up a nice show. Rob Young, who's been to PrimalCon, coming all the way from Canada. I'm training at 121 beats per minute, and that allows me to run about 7K per hour on the flat, and any hill I encounter requires me to walk. Welcome to the club. All right. And since we primarily trail run, I do a lot of walking. I let my ego go, but it's quite frustrating. You mentioned about the plus or minus 5 beats. With my past training history, can I bump it up 5 beats, please? This is like Endurance Planet, Tanya Prazak. People are always asking about that and looking for these back doors. It's hilarious. Here's the thing. If you're frustratingly slow at 121, it suggests you have room for improvement with your aerobic development. This is my answer that I wrote to him. So you might as well stick to that low heart rate and allow yourself to improve your speed over time. So buying that extra 5 beats for $5 and allowing yourself to maybe enjoy your workout a little more because you're going a little faster, you're probably better off being conservative with your maximum aerobic heart rate and getting used to walking up hills, getting used to enjoying a little lower stress workout than constantly pushing the envelope and constantly, by the way, there's no one says you have to go right up to your aerobic maximum at every single workout. Yet that's what almost everyone does because it's so easy and comfortable. But you can go much lower than your maximum aerobic heart rate, which for most people would entail a walk around the office courtyard where your heart rate's up to 100, 110, 115. Maybe your max aerobic is 140. Those are good workouts. Those count. Those contribute to your aerobic development. Those recruit aerobic energy producing enzymes that kick in at low heart rate, and also those same enzymes kick in when you're going faster and faster and all the way up to anaerobic. If you can imagine the turbines on the cruise ship where there's 14 of them, and the slow moving ones are on all the time, even when the ship's in port going 1 mile an hour, and then they have all of them fired up when they're out on the ocean trying to go 25, get to Cabo San Lucas before dark. But again, turbines 1, 2, and 3 are still cranking. They're still contributing to your pace, to your energy production at high heart rate. Yet we often skip over those low aerobic energy producing enzymes because we jump right into with a 5-minute warm up and boom, there we are pegging our heart rate at maximum aerobic heart rate for the duration of every workout, or exceeding it too much, or being undisciplined, or bumping up 5 beats when we really shouldn't. So I'd say stick with the low one. And then, oh yes, I added from my story last year, I went through the same thing. I really burnt out when I was running for about 5 months at my maximum aerobic heart rate, which I calculated to be 142 beats a minute rather than 180 minus my age, which is 130. So I was 12 beats high with my maximum aerobic heart rate. That's a lot of beats when you consider running every single day, running up hills, feeling comfortable. 142 is fine. I'm jogging, I'm talking. It's absolutely no strain. But over months and months and months of time, it sent me right into a burnout spiral. I had health problems, surgeries that came up after that, emergency appendectomy and kidney surgeries. My body fell apart at the age of 50. It was a really sad, disgraceful fall from being Mr. Fit Guy. And I attribute part of that was random. The doctor would say an appendectomy is random, but I attribute my breakdown in part due to getting burnt out and physically fatigued and exhausted from 5 months of training at an overly elevated what I thought was aerobic heart rate. Why did I pick 142? Because I was such a badass 20 years ago, racing professional on the circuit at 155, and that was my super easy heart rate. So I bumped it down to 142, forgetting how much time has passed, and also calculating off of my maximum heart rate, 77%. Okay, so most people out there, most of the scientists, journalists, people that are writing about this topic, or many of them, not most, maybe a lot of them are now joining up with Maffetone's formula. But prior to this, we had also mentioned that 75% of max was a good aerobic heart rate. In most cases, it's true. So if you were to go test your max in a laboratory with all the wires and get an accurate maximum heart rate and take 75% of that, it would probably come out to be somewhere near 180 minus your age. But that doesn't hold true for the entire population. Personally, I know that my max heart rate still is up at 190. I see that number when I'm doing a quarter mile for time on the track. So I calculated my maximum aerobic heart rate off of my 190 maximum heart rate, which is way higher than the predicted formulas would say for my age. So I calculated, and there I am at 142. It's way too high, and that was the last straw to convince us at Primal Blueprint, Mark and I, to strongly get behind Maffetone's 180 minus age formula. It's so simple. You don't need a max heart rate test. It's memorable, and you're on the safe side. And it's also been proven anecdotally from some of the top athletes in the world, like Mike Pigg, Mark Allen, Tim DeBoom, that worked with Maffetone, and also thousands of recreational people that Maffetone has studied and collected data on this, and is very clear that this 180 minus your age is really the point where your maximum fat burning occurs, your maximum aerobic benefits occur with a minimal amount of anaerobic stimulation. So after I recovered from my burnout, I set that watch with great discipline to 130 beats per minute as a maximum. And then guess what happened over the ensuing year's time, bringing us up to current date here. I got more and more efficient. It was extremely frustrating at first, where I was actually having to walk on flat ground. Forget about walking up hills, man. I was walking on flat ground during a normal routine jog to keep that heart rate under 130. Also noticing on certain mornings, under the overstressed or whatever, not fully rested or recovered, that I would get up to that 130 running much slower than usual. So sometimes I had good days and I'd run along at a nice pace, and sometimes I'd have to do jog walking just because that was a day that represented I was tired, represented on my heart rate. So I stuck to that 130 with great discipline, did not want to go back into that burnout scene. And guess what happened after a year of devoted discipline to the 130? Performing a maximum aerobic function test, my performance time was superior to my previous maximum aerobic function test at 142 heart rate. So I'm 12 beats slower, but after a year of training, without the interruption from the burnout and the overstress patterns from holding 142s, after a year of training at 130, I'm more efficient at 130 than I was at 142 the previous year. That's a huge testament to the success of aerobic training. So from the bottom of my heart, I'm begging you to slow down, be patient, give this a chance. Notice if you do get frustrated that you can record your test results and see that you're improving. Yes, it might be, like the other reader stated, going down from 12 minutes to 11 minutes, and it's still really slow and still frustrating, but it means you're improving. You're knocking off huge chunks of time from your aerobic fitness. And then guess what happens when you open up the throttle, like I do at speed golf tournaments where I'm going all out. My heart rate's up at 170, 175, probably 180 if I hit a bad shot. But it's, a maximum effort for 5 miles, 45 minutes or so out on the golf course during the tournament. I'm running fine and I'm feeling strong, even though I never train anywhere near those heart rates. I'm always jogging down at 130, or I'm doing an all-out sprint workout that's very short in duration, that's building up my abilities to perform as an endurance athlete over a 5-mile course. But I don't have to go and put my body through that with any regularity to have that strength and be able to pull upon that strength thanks to my aerobic development. The sweating is from the 102-degree weather here in the film studio, not from the difficulty of your questions. I love your questions. Keep them coming. And thank you so much for listening. So we'll do one more. And this is from Ted Luz. It seems that a lot of questions and podcast topics are about not going above 180 minus your age. Imagine that. That should be the whole theme of this show. We keep talking about it. For me, 46 years old, training at 120 plus or minus seems like a moderately hard pace. 134 is a pretty hard pace. I'm running a marathon in September. Ultimately, my question is, should I care that my easy workouts are at 120 beats per minute, or should I try to work closer to the 134 beats per minute, which represents his maximum aerobic heart rate? A very rare question indeed, very rare situation that people feel like they actually are working kind of hard and going fast at aerobic heart rate, and that's because some unique individuals, that's true. So go ahead and work at a lower heart rate so that the workout doesn't feel as strenuous. You're still developing your aerobic system, and it's absolutely fine and dandy. Again, it's rare, but perhaps you have a super efficient fat burning mechanism, and you can go at what feels like a pretty good pace all the way up to your aerobic maximum. But you might experience fatigue, overtraining patterns from pegging it at maximum aerobic heart rate if you're one of those unique individuals who can actually work hard and not feel like it's super easy. But most people, it feels super easy. Most people are in that category of being aerobically deficient and anaerobically fit. So slowing down, making workouts feel comfortable, you'll enjoy them more. That'll be the ticket, the way to go. And thank you for listening and watching on YouTube, a Primal Endurance podcast with more Q&A. Go ahead and send your questions to info@primalblueprintpublishing.com, and we'll get another show going. If you didn't hear your question asked, that's because we have a huge backlog. So I'll do another Q&A show, and all the questions are coming at me and being answered in chronological order. Thank you so much for listening, watching to the Primal Endurance podcast. This is Brad Kearns. Till next time.
Got a passion for Primal? Join Mark Sisson on a mission to save the world. Become a Primal Blueprint certified expert today. With our $1 down payment program, it's easier than ever. Just pay $1 to start and $89 a month for the next 12 months. The Primal Blueprint Expert Certification is the most comprehensive online primal paleo certification program of its kind. Explore the fascinating world of ancestral health from the comfort of your own home with this premier multimedia experience. Perfect for health and fitness professionals, as well as individuals looking to uplevel their primal practice. Visit primalblueprint.com/get-certified to put $1 down today.